Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, we got a lot to talk about. The Vols won the SEC outright last night, which was fantastic. Very exciting game. And then Mike Norvell came really close to going Alabama. A lot closer than many of us thought. I mean, super close. So we got a lot to cover in this show. I'm going to need a little bit of help. Peyton, Carl, help me out.
Omaha! Up!
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. All right, let's get into this story. I'm going to start out with this Mike Norvell thing. And you're not going to believe who Florida State almost hired if Norvell would have left. It's really going to get you going. And this is a report on Noel Game Day by Dustin Lewis. A report said Mike Norvell considered taking the Alabama job and Lane Kiffin was a potential replacement. That would have been interesting. I told you he's going to wind up at a Florida school. I just thought it'd be the Gators. I didn't think it'd be Florida State. But it came close. Says the Seminoles were prepared for all outcomes when the Alabama Crimson Tide came calling for Norvell. He wound up getting an 8-year extension that'll make him one of the highest paid coaches in college football after he chose to stick with the Seminoles. I feel confident that $80 million helped him make a decision.
Comes in pretty handy down here, bub. Oh,
to stay with the Seminoles. I think that was a good decision. I don't think following Nick Saban would have been a good choice. He's got it going really well down there at Florida State. I'd stick with what you got, especially for 80 million smacks. It says Alabama made a sizable push to land Norvell. So there was even some worry from the FSU side, especially after former head coach Jimbo Fisher departed from the program in Texas when he went to Texas A&M. So they wanted to be prepared. According to ESPN's Chris Lowe, Alabama's athletic director was focused on Norvell and Kalen DeBoer from the beginning of the coaching search. Both candidates fit the standard as proven names who had led their respective programs to success while displaying an ability to develop talent. I would agree with that. He had serious conversations with Norvell and DeBoer the day after Saban retired. Says Byrne flew to Seattle that Thursday to meet with DeBoer in person while also having another talk with Norvell. The strong pursuit of Norvell led to fear among Florida State officials that they'd be close to saying yes. On Friday morning, hours later, athletic director Michael Alford confirmed that the program was keeping its head coach. Says in the event that the Seminoles did have to begin a coaching search of their own, they were prepared to move swiftly and already had at least one name in mind. Said Lowe wrote that sources informed him that Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin would have been a prime candidate to succeed Norvell at Florida State. Wow, you talking about a heck of a move. That would have really moved things around. And actually, their athletic director at FSU had contacted some Vol fans and wanted to know what they thought about bringing in Lane Kiffin. And it kind of went like this.
Just give me a sign.
No!
Yeah, the Vols fans didn't think it would be a good move for them, so Florida State's probably fine sticking with Mike Norvell. Said Kiffin has been one of the most polarizing coaches in the sport. That's because he's a job hopper. But he's had a good record down there at Ole Miss. 34-15 is very good at Ole Miss, and he's coming off 11-2 campaign. They beat Penn State in the Peach Bowl, etc. Said Kiffin was one of the few figures out of the SEC to defend the Seminoles in the wake of the historic college football playoff snub. I defended him, and I'm a big figure in SEC sports in my mind.
And I'm no slouch myself.
Don't sell yourself short, Judge. You're a tremendous slouch.
Says, I do feel for Florida State and their players for doing everything they were asked to do and not making it. That was really obvious the first time that it's ever happened. To be undefeated and have that happen, I do feel for them and Coach Norvell because they had an amazing season. They did overcome a lot. Norvell decided to stick around for 80 million reasons. At the same time, he's encouraged that Florida State was willing to do whatever it was needed. Florida State's working hard, man. They're spending money in the portal. They're spending money on their coach. They're trying to get out of the ACC so they can get more money coming in on a regular basis and get out of that god-awful grant of rights deal where they're getting a pittance of what the SEC teams are getting. Vanderbilt's getting twice as much money as Florida State. Think about that one for a moment.
You serious?
Oh, jeez. So I thought y'all would find that as a very interesting story. Man, I'm telling you, talking about a domino effect, that would have been something. And Ole Miss fans, I'm sorry that every time an opening comes up, Lane Kiffin is always mentioned, but everybody knows he's a job hopper. It's what he does. And when a big job like Florida State would open up, I promise you he'd have taken that. And if Billy Napier doesn't make it at Florida, which he won't this year, there's a high likelihood he's going to wind up either there or somewhere else. He's not going to stay at Ole Miss forever. He's just not. That's not his style. So anyway, now we're going to talk about the Tennessee Vols and the SEC Championship. What a great game. I knew South Carolina was going to muck it up. They were going to turn it into a scrum, and that's exactly what they did. We didn't score a lot of points. I told you it'd be in the 60s or 70s is what we'd score. It would not be in the 80s. Because South Carolina, they slow the game down, they limit your possessions, they bully you in the middle. They've got some big dudes in there that can flat out do that, and you've got to take advantage of your opportunities. That was a heck of a ball game. Dalton Connect, who played a great game. It wasn't his best game, but he did everything he needed to do to win the game as far as scoring points.
He's good. He's real good.
The name is Dalton.
Yeah, he's a heck of a player, no doubt.
Roadhouse.
And we've had a few people from South Carolina say that there was a problem with the referees. They were calling too many calls against South Carolina, not enough against Tennessee, which I don't know what ball game they watched, but to me it looked like it was pretty fair. When you look at the number of fouls, it was 17-13. Okay, South Carolina did have 4 more fouls, but remember, they fouled intentionally 4 times in the last couple of minutes. So it was really 13-13 until they got desperate. They were down 10 with, 2 minutes to go? So they had to just start fouling. That's all they could do. So in reality, I didn't see it that way at all. I do know they were upset about the one play where the guard jumped up to shoot his three-pointer and jumped at a 45-degree angle into our guy and then threw his hands out like this in order to try to look like he got fouled on a three-point shot. I actually have a videotape of that. Yeah, that was the actual shot, and that's what it looked like to me. So I was really glad they didn't call that because that was so obvious. Who shoots a three-point shot and jumps 45 degrees sideways and then throws their arms out like that? Give me a break. That was so obvious. Jeez. But anyway, most of the South Carolina fans were pretty cool about it. Look, they know they got beat, and sometimes that happens. You know, we've got a lot of talent, and that dadgum Dalton Connect was something else, man. Jeez. But I got to give South Carolina a lot of props. This is a team that we beat by 40 and 44 last year, 84 points total in 2 ball games. They were one of the worst SEC clubs in a long time, and for the coach to turn them around like they have and bring in some transfer portal guys, they were a very good club this year, and they almost won the SEC. They could have, had they won last night, they would have been tied with us, and they'd have had a share of the SEC, and they could have won it outright, actually, if we'd have got beat by Kentucky and they won their next game against Mississippi State. They'd have had it all to themselves, which would have been amazing. So I got to give a lot of respect to them for the great season that they had, and it really was. It was the big turnaround, probably the biggest turnaround in the history of SEC basketball. He'll be Coach of the Year for sure. And if you look at the stats, we shot 35%, which was not that great. They shot 38%. We were 35% from 3. They were 27%. That's what really hurt them. They shot the ball from 3 29 times. I really thought they would go inside a lot and try to get our guys into foul trouble, but they didn't do that. And I think that's because Rick Barnes watched the previous game and he just decided to really gum it up in the middle and force them to shoot the 3, which they're not that great at. And they got kind of 3-point happy, shooting quite a bit. And really, had they not hit those 2 miracle threes at the end, they would have really been down around 20%. So that helped them a bunch. But they got too focused on shooting the three-pointer. I think had they focused on getting it in the middle, that would have helped them quite a bit. The other problem that South Carolina had, they shot 50% from the free throw line, and we shot 86%. So that was a big part of it. And 7 of these foul shots happened in the last 2 minutes that we made. So it was fairly even as far as that goes. They out-rebounded us. I'm not surprised by that, just a little bit. We had a couple more steals. They had a couple more turnovers. So it was a pretty close game, but we were solidly in the lead the entire game. 10 points most of the game. And you can thank Dalton Connect for getting hot at the end of the first half when he hit three-pointer after three-pointer. They couldn't do anything with him. And even though he didn't have a great game as far as percentages, he scored the points we needed him to score with 25. Sorry about that, 26. Adu had a nice game with 14. Ziegler, of course, had 13, which was great, 7 assists. And Triple J had 6 rebounds, 6 points, which is a nice game. Vescovi didn't have a huge game, but he made those 2 free throws at the end and ended it. He's Mr. Clutch on free throws. And I told you we were going to get our revenge. They beat us earlier in the year, but that we were coming back and we were going to come down there and beat them at South Carolina for the ultimate revenge.
Revenge is a dish that is best served cold. It is very cold in space.
And yes, revenge is always best served cold. Con knows. So anyway, a fantastic game. I enjoyed it. And look, I had some of y'all, I did a pre-show and I did a post-game show, something I don't know that I've ever done for basketball. And some of y'all want me to go live. I can't go live in a game and record it and let you see that because I'm way too loud. I'm way too crazy. And also some profanity seems to come out during that times, and y'all don't need to hear that.
You don't need to hear things like that. You just a boy. You need to think about good thoughts while you're still a boy.
Now, listen to Carl. He knows. So anyway, a great game, a great season. We've still got Kentucky coming up, which is going to be awesome. I think that's going to be a fun game at Thompson Bowling. And they're going to get to really enjoy that SEC title. And we came really close to having Lane Kiffin at Florida State. That would have been something. And Mike Norvell at Alabama. Again, I think Norvell did the right thing. I would have stayed at FSU. That's a better place. You've got a ton of fan support there. If you go to Alabama, you got to win immediately. Otherwise, they're ready to get rid of you because you're not Nick Saban.
I don't give a piss about nothing but the Tide, baby.
Don't give a piss about nothing but the Tide.
I love them.
Whereas Florida State, they love you. So I would be sticking around there, Norvell. I wouldn't go anywhere. They treat you great. They pay you great. You've got plenty of money for your NIL. You got it made in the shade, dude. Just keep winning. You'll have no problems. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's me continue to cover all this college news and things like that. My Vols winning last night was very exciting. You don't win a whole lot of SEC titles by yourself, so I couldn't be more happy for these guys. It's awesome. And if you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Hit this little button. I'd appreciate it. And right over here's the most recent video. YouTube, thanks, you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.